Hi everyone and welcome to Rage Print. I'm Andy and this is episode 8 of the Chopper build. And in this episode we'll be building the foot drives, which will enable us to finish the actual feet in their entirety, and then we can put them on 3 legs. So why don't you join us to see how we get on. Okay, so the first thing we're starting with is the rear wheels A and B. And as you can see, there is a black pair and a white pair. Those are the 2 different drives. We've also got the Omni spindle and Omni cap. There's one each for the drives. And then we've got the drive pieces that I've separated out into bags just so the pieces don't get mixed up, because there is a difference between the left side and right side, and that's in the herringbone shape of the gears themselves. And we've got some 6002 ZZ bearings, some M3 nuts, some Vex Omni wheels, 3.25 inches, 2 of those, and M3 by 35 screws, and some M3 by 10 screws. So first of all, I'm going to start doing some cleanup on the prints themselves, mainly just getting rid of the bridging in the screw holes. I'm just making sure they're going to sit flush together. This will be an M3 and M3 by 10 screw and an M3 nut. Not a square nut, one of the hexagonal nuts. So you can see that just screws nicely. Well, I can get the screw in place. That just screws nicely into there. And then kind of creating a self-tapping by doing that as well. Just clean up a bit of material around the outside. And the nut will sit nicely on there. Nice and easy, eh? There you go. So now we come to the black pair. Yeah, this is going to be an ongoing story with the black pieces. As you can see, I've got the border all out at this point. Trying to clean it up. And I end up having lots of fun with the black pieces. The story will unfold as we go through the walkthrough. So again, just putting the M3 by 10 nut in. And it seems to go okay until I start putting the M3 nut. Yeah, as you can see, I'm having all sorts of trouble just trying to get it to screw in. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. At this point, I'm wondering, well, the white one went fine. Why is the black one not going in? The nut just seems to be sitting higher than the screw hole, which is getting very confusing. So I end up unscrewing it, I'll try it from the other side in a second. Thinking maybe that actually because it's actually the same piece, the white and black piece is actually both the same. Maybe there is a screw side and a nut side. So I try putting the nut in again, and nothing. It's still pushing at the bottom edge of the nut, the bottom edge of the screw hole. I'm getting a bit confused here. It's like, well, hang on, the white one took me like all of a minute to do. So you can see I'm trying all sorts here, trying to just hold it in place using a pair of pliers just to try and hold it in. See if it can get it to catch at least, but it's not catching. It's just not having it. And this is an M3 nut. You know, even trying to use snips and anything just to give it a bit of purchase, to hold it in place to get a bit of purchase. So the best of it is you're seeing this in time lapse. For me, this was agonising. Yeah, so I start clearing up the prints by sort of cutting the material away. I'll get a file out in a second. But there we go. Yeah, I'll start filing the bottom just so the nut will sit a bit lower. And yeah, I'm just checking the nut is actually lining up with the hole, and it appears to be. it's only when I go to put them both together, it's sort of like, no, it's not having it. Sort of trying to work out what's going on. And then I drop them that. It's like, brilliant. I'll grab another one. I'll try again with cleaning it up. But yeah, this should have been a warning sign that I was going to have problems, and didn't really think about it at the time. So trying again. This time, did I switch to the square net yet? No, thanks, Artie. Yeah, there we go. Switch to a square nut now, thinking, oh, if the square nut can sit flat on the edge, then that'll help me. Even though it still wasn't easy, but it catch now. Yeah, there we go. Finally, ended up using an M3 square nut, and it caught. That took way too long. Okay. So now we're going to put the Omni wheel in, but first we need to put the bearings in. So we start with the 6002 ZZ bearings. These are 15 by 32 by 9 mil, and they just pop in there like that. But first we need to clear out the bridging there. Then I get a bit violent here and just smash it out like that. Yeah, just why not? So peel it all the way, and then I clean it up because I don't want bits of bridging material getting caught in the bearings or getting caught on the spindle or rubbing against the wheel. So I make sure it's a nice clean print. I feel I should be speaking. I've got nothing really to talk about until I finish doing, filing these out. Just be conversation for conversation's point. At this point. There we go. So finish filing those out. Screw it, tighten that back up, and there we go. And then the bearing just pushes in there, nice and snug, like that, all the way down to the bottom. And then on the other side, same again, just push it in so it sits all the way down to the bottom. There you go. And then repeat for the black one. And this is where the problems start. Thanks, R2 again. So the black one's just not fitting. It's just like a millimetre out all the way around. And I mentioned this in a bit. I'm going to end up repeating myself on this, but it's just not going in. It's just very, very slightly out. And I can't work out what's going on. So like, is it elephant's foot? Have I accidentally got an elephant's foot on the print? Have I... Yeah, what... Are the bearings different sizes? Or... So I ended up just trying to sand it out, thinking, okay, maybe it just needs a bit of sanding. And... trying to work out what else to do here. Have I missed something? Have I got something wrong? So go for high grit sandpaper, just try and wear the material away. I mean, to be fair, the screw should have been my first clue. This should have been my second clue. There's going to be problems. So you can see, even with that sanding, it's just still ever so slightly out. It's the bearing has like a fluted edge, and it's resting on that fluted edge. So it's literally like, there we go. I'm even resorting to using a hammer now. It literally needs to be like half a mil, not even that, all the way around. But yeah, it's just not having it. The hammer's not going to work. I don't know why I tried the hammer, because if I got it flat, I need to still push it down into the hole itself, all the way to flush to the bottom. Try more sand in. As you tell, I was probably getting a bit irate by this point. So I'll try the hammer again, just thinking if I can just get it past the beginning point, it should just go all the way, because I'm still thinking at this point it's just elephant's foot. Still not having, and I'm bashing it in. Actually, I'm, at this point I'm thinking, oh, I'm probably going to break the bearing or the print, or you're trying to bash it in that way. It's actually quite funny watching it in fast speed. Yeah, this is stupid. I don't know why I did that. So in the end, I decided, yeah, I've got it in, but now I realise I'm not going to be able to push it all the way in. It's not elephant's foot. Elephant's foot, by the way, if you don't know, is where the first few layers of the print kind of bow outwards. It's almost like it's pressed down and creates like a bulge. So now we're going to go for extreme idea number 2. I'm going to use a soldier 9. And you're probably wondering, what the hell are you going to do with a soldier 9? Well, very simple. I should cut this slightly, but anyway. Very simply, I'm going to heat the bearing up. I really should have cut this, but anyway. I'm going to heat the bearing up, and I'm going to melt it into the plastic. Because I've done something similar before. I've melted nuts into a hand for the pit droid, so the nuts sit flush into the hand rather than sticking outside. So exactly like I'm trying to do here. I've done it with a nut. I figured, well, it's worth a shot. Even trying to melt the edge of the plastic so I could just sort of slide it in. And if I'd been thinking clearly, I would have realised this wasn't going to work, and all I'm doing is just ruining the print. But you can see it is some of the way in. Just got to get it all the way down the bottom, and yeah, this is never going to work, to be honest. And if I had melted around the edges, it would have made it so loose it would just pop back out again. At least willing to give this a go. Try and keep the edge up, just on that tip, just to heat the edge up, so it's just sort of slinking down on one side, and I can, rock it down almost. You think this is slow on the time lapse? Just think how long it took me in real life. Yeah, heat it from the other side. Problem is, in doing this, all I've successfully created is a new ledge for the bearing to sit on. But if the goal was to get it flat, level with the top edge of the print you see there, I would have been fine. So I've given up by this point. I've given up. Just put it to the side and gone. Yeah, don't know what's going on. I'm going to have a think about it. No good. So I'm going to carry on with the white one. The white one seemed to be okay. The bearings just popped in. Everything must be alright with those. So now we start with the Vex wheel. So there we go, just the Vex wheel. And we also want the Omni spindle. And that just pushes through that side. So we just put the Vex wheel in like that and push the Omni spindle through. Checking it actually fits first. There we go. Push it through the other side. And then, as you can see there, and then we get the Omni cap, and that's got it's a shaped cutout, so it only fit one way around. So we just push it in. I've already I have sanded the Omni spindle slightly. Again, because it's the black filament, anything in the black filament was just very slightly out. So there we go, that's pushed in. Just about. Bash it in. Every tool's a hammer. There we go, so I'm happy with that, making sure that the Vex wheel is sort of at least semi-centered, and there's no way the spindle itself is going to slide around on either side of the bearing. So there we go. Happy with that yet? Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then we want to take an M335 countersunk screw, machine screw. Arguments in the comments of if it's a bolt or screw or whatever. But anyway, 2 of those, 1 on each side. And effectively they're going to self-tap their way through. This is painful. I should have pre-drilled the holes. You see later on I do wreck a couple of screws. Should have pre-drilled the holes. Yeah, that's it. I'm swapping screws. I wrecked a couple of heads. They just weren't screwing. I ended up having to use what you see later on. So 1 screw on that side, 1 screw on the other side, and that will give strength to the spindle itself. Just a bit of reinforcement. But also stops the cap coming off. Not that cap's going to come off. The way I've pushed it in. Yeah, so that's nearly done. God, it looks a lot faster in time lapse. There we go, done. That's 2 M335s into the Omni spindle. We now got a back wheel, but one of the drives. So I'm not sure about if that should be wiggling as much, but there we go. That's one bit of wheels. And then next bit, we're moving on to the main frame itself. So that's the outer frame, the groove, and the centre frame. We need some M3 square nuts. And we're going to need a load of these. Reminds me I need to order some more. So anyway, first of all, before we forget, 1 M3 square nut goes in there. So pop that in there before you put the bearing in. I'll point out now, full disclosure, that I forgot to put the bearing, put that in on the black one. So yeah, that just goes in there. And yeah, still popping it in there. Yeah, on both sides. So that's the outer frame and the centre frame, I think they call it. Let me take the 6002 bearings. One goes in there. See, why can't the black ones just slot nicely like that? Anyway, done. So now we get, I'm just checking the notes. We get that. Trying to work out which way around it goes. Put some more M3 nuts in there. And some M3 by 20s. So this is the centre frame going to the outer frame. So the first one goes in there. And the cutout that I'm currently screwing into. Oh, yeah. This is where I suddenly realised, oh yeah, I've got a mix of Phillips and Hex. It's going to be fun. So anyway, yeah, the cutout where the screw's going into is where the motor lives. So that one needs to, this bolt needs to be as flush as possible. 2 more M3 square nuts. And then you drop a screw into each of those holes there. And tighten it up as much as you can. Yeah, You get one in there and one in there. And jiggle it around a bit until it actually goes in. God, that sounded bad. That sounded really bad. I apologise for that. That sounded bad. There you go. 1, 2, 3. So next up, we're going to take the groove, and we've got 8 holes, and you can see 2 of them in this slightly further away. So pop 3 square nuts in there, and then 1 at the end. And you see here, there's 3, and then there's 1 on its own, and they sort of match up like that. There you go, sort of flip it over, so like that. So the 3 that are together, they use M3 by 20s again. I think I'm just checking here to make sure which screws I need. And dropping the M3 square nuts as well. That is for the M335. Yep, there you go. Those 3 are the M320s. So Mike does say you should use some hot glue here to hold the square nuts in. One day I will actually do that. Putting that one in first. And no, that's not the M335. I realised I got it wrong and changed it to an M335 later. Just pop the nuts in again. They just, as I said, they keep dropping out. I should have just used a bit of hot glue to hold them in. Pure laziness on my part, not doing that. So how this drive is going together, that is how the drives should go together. What you see with the black drive, or what I do of the black drive, that's how that's going wrong. So I think I realised my mistake in a second because I put the M335 on the far side. Alright, the motor. So this is a Razor scooter motor. And you need to take the cog off. So I use that wrench to hold the actual cog in place, and then the pliers just to undo the screw at the top. It's a bit counterintuitive. It's righty-loosey instead of lefty-loosey. But there you go. Yeah, so the nuts come off the shaft, and then the motor. So the shaft goes in through there. So I lied, the cutout wasn't for the motor. Cutouts for the big motor cog. Yeah, so the shaft comes through there. And then my scooter motors actually came with the bolts. I think it's slightly off camera. Oh, there they are in the packet. And these are M3 by 15s. As I said, these came out of the original scooter, so I didn't have to source them anywhere. I also know that they are going to be countersunk and they are going to end up being flush. The only thing I did find is they were not quite metric sized. They weren't quite imperial sized either, so maybe I should have just sourced some M315s. Yeah, the end of the hex just like not quite going in and sort of turning it while it's skimming the top of the hex hole. Yeah, I'm trying the imperial ones now, thinking, oh, okay, maybe it is an American, maybe it's, yeah, it's still not going to work. So that's the motor secured. I'm just working out how the back wheel goes on. Okay, so now we're starting with the drive gears. This is it's actually called the drive gear. And then we need an 8mm rigid flange coupling. And that just slots in there. and a couple of M3 square nuts. So 180 degrees from each other. And then use M310 bolts. There you go, M310s. And you do actually screw all four in. So two of them have got square nuts, and the other two just self-tap into the plastic. Of course, now I've got the fun of trying to work out why the screws aren't going in, and it's because the bridging has not got the hole for me to screw through. And also, again, black plastic, all the dimensions are slightly out. I'm having to expand the size of the hole slightly, so the screw will actually go in. Same problem as the bearings, effectively. It's just slightly too small. At least with the screws, I can self-tap them in. So yeah, the other M3 nut goes in there. I just realised looking at Shaggy's face, it's just like he's just staring at what I'm working on. That's all I can see now, is just Shaggy staring at what I'm working on. Right, okay, stop looking at that. So the other thing you're going to need are some M4 set screws that are about 5mm or slightly bigger. If you buy these particular flange bearings, they do actually come with the set screws. Right, you can see this. There you go. There's a set screw there. Literally a 5mm. There's one on each side, although I don't realise that at the time. And these will secure to the shaft of the motor. So now we slot it on. And you've got the flat part of the shaft there, and this is where I don't realise there's two holes. But anyway, line the shaft up to the hole. And this long cutout here is where you've got access to do the set screw up. Yeah, that's where I realised there's actually a second set screw. And I just screw that one in as well. R2. So there you go. That just turns nicely. It's not quite flush against the plastic, but not, you know, it's like a mil, not even that, away from the plastic. Right. Again, these are printed with the dreaded black plastic. So these ones are the 6800 2RS bearings, so they're 10 by 19 by 5. And there should be one going in there. Again, removing the bridging. By this point, I'm naively thinking it couldn't possibly be anything wrong with these ones as well. It must be just the frame, not the gears as well. So incidentally, these gears are, Mike recommends the printing in PETG. I didn't, I just printed in PLA+. However, they are 7 walls, 7 top and bottom layers, and 30% infill, off the top of my head. Okay, so I don't normally do a voiceover, or rather an audio clip on a build part of the video. But this is kind of a special case, as I don't think I will capture it properly in a voiceover. As you may have noticed, the bearings went in fairly simply here. And you know, they're tight, but they come out. Yeah, they fit fine. But when I came to do it on the black pieces, you can see they don't fit. It's like 1/2 mil out all the way around. And I was even having trouble with the screw here as well. And I think, again, it's because it's like 1/2 mil out. Obviously, I've even damaged the. Get to focus on it. You can see I've damaged the bearing trying to get it out of there. And I'm sure I'll keep it in the video where I try using a soldering iron to try and just melt it enough to push it through. So it seems to me that anything printed white is fine. Anything printed with the black filament is going to cause me a problem. Now I had two choices. I could reprint everything that's printed in black, but that's one entire drive and all the drive gears. That's an awful lot of work. Alternatively, I get a Dremel out and I Dremel the pieces to fit in. Now, it's still need a bit of work because it's still sitting proud, and also probably gone a bit too far around, but I can always hot glue that in. Yeah, so I just Dremel the pieces. So that, a bit of force that will go in, and again, it's a bit wonky, but it's getting there anyway. Because it would be all these pieces for the left drive, which is the black foot. Sorry, that's for this foot, and then right, which is the other foot, which is the black foot, which is this one. So I've ordered a new bearing to replace this one. I mean, it still turns. I can just feel a bit of a click as it goes past this point here. But anyway, the idea being I will just Dremel out the hole bigger, carefully and slowly. So why are they different? Why? I don't honestly know. So the white bits were printed on my first Sidewinder X1, and this is ice filaments white. The black pieces are printed on my new Sidewinder X1, and this is ice filaments black. So it could be a discrepancy between the two different colours, just the way it expands slightly or goes down. I think more than likely it's the printers, because you can see the first layer here is quite shiny and compact. I compare that to the first layer on this one, if you can. It's not quite as compact. So I think it's all down to the first layer, but even so, it's all the way through. So I think it's dimensional accuracy. If I just spin the camera around to show you the printers. So this is my second printer. It's got a different pot end. It's going to let me. It's got a different pot end to this one. The first one is the stock hot end. Yeah, the first one, which is the second printer I just showed you, that's the stock hot end. The other one's got it's an E3D. I'm assuming it's a Hemera. I didn't actually buy it like that. I bought it second hand, so I'm not quite sure what's in there. But I think that's my problem. It's caused, I've got a bit of elephant's foot around on the gearing here, and they're consistently off. It's consistently off by a mil on these circles. And to be honest, once you get rid of the elephant's foot, that's fine. So yeah. So when I come back, I'm going to spend some time dremeling out the holes and making sure they fit. So you'll probably find when we come back to the build part of the video, the bearings will be already in. You see me put the bearings in here anyway. And there's bearings in this bit, which you can see, and then there's another bearing. There's it's two bearings in there. There'll be the bearings in there and the bearings in there. I think that's it. But yeah, as I said, everything else fits. So it's just very strange. I'm hoping it's not the printer, because that could cause me problems later on with all the other pieces I printed. I'm hoping it's the black filament. It's just different. What can I say? It's different to the white filament. It's just really confusing, and it is really, you can see how frustrated I was getting with it. Yeah, so there'll be a bit of a cut here, probably about a week of me getting the pieces ready before I'll be picking up the build again. Yeah, so the first half was what, an hour and a quarter getting to this point, and then I'll get the rest of the holes drilled out because I need to drill them out for the rest of this foot anyway because they're all printed using the black. And then we'll cut back to finishing the drive. There's a good chance I might build this drive, finish it off, and then show you the rest of this drive on the build video, just to make sure everything's okay. But we'll see. You will get to see me build at least one of the drives, and the other one's just exactly the same. It's just a mirror image. So anyway, in your case, you'll see me in about a split second. In my case, I'll see you in about a week. Okay, so here we are 3 weeks later. To be honest, it might actually be even longer than 3 weeks. So here we are. I've dremeled out the drive gears, and put the bearings in. I've had to a two-part epoxy. God, that was hard to get out. A two-part epoxy thing so it's slightly overboard. So anyway, we now need to put in the center spindle, as we have there. And that gets pushed into there from that side, just like that. And then we attach the drive gear. The middle gear, sorry. It's called the middle gear, not the drive gear. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm pushing the drive gear on. I'm trying to get the herringbones to line up. I'm also struggling with the fact that because I've had to Dremel these pieces out, I was never going to get it perfectly level. The bearings are very, very slightly canted. But as you can see, it's spinning freely. I'm just trying to get it all the way down through onto the spindle, and the spindle keeps popping back out the other side rather than going through the bearing. I think at some point the bearing pops out instead. In fact, there you go, I can see the bearing going now. But anyway, so there needs to be at least that much poking through, because you're going to attach the cover to that in a bit. There you go. So that's the drive gear and the center gear. Sorry, middle gear, center gear, middle gear. And just probably what I'm taking out now. Taking out some M3 square nuts, I believe. Yeah, the old M3 square nuts. And get my board roll out. Because again, I've got to poke out the holes where the bridgings happen on the screw holes. So it's 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 5 and 3 square nuts go into there. That was a bit tricky. I ended up just hooking it onto the board drill and just sort of popping it in that way. Seems to work quite well. So it's just sort of sliding the board drill off and it lands, fall into the hole. And then you've got to be extra careful on the other side because you tip it the other way, it tips back out. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we want, I'm just digging them out now. So M3 15s, or in this case M3 14s, because I can find 15s. And then we're going to attach, get it out, we're going to attach the gear cover. And that goes that way around. So that is where the center spindle pops out. And that should just push on. This will also have the effect of making sure the spindle stays in position, and then you just simply screw into those 5 nuts that you used earlier. Just screwing those in. So yeah, it's about 3 weeks. It's actually a bit longer than 3 weeks, despite what I say on the video. Even had time to go on holiday in between. I can recommend Woolacombe down in Devon. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The centre spindle's pushed through, and we'll need the cap for this. So I'm just checking that the gear is actually moving and it's not binding too much. I'm expecting it to bind a little, but in this case, I'm going to be putting grease on later. I'm just trying to straighten it out a bit as well, because I noticed the herringbones aren't in line with each other. So yeah, what happens in that, well, let's say 5 weeks? I left it. I just couldn't bear doing it. In the end, I did end up dremeling out the holes. Pre-drilled a lot of holes as well, and I actually did end up building the black drive just to make sure there's no issues further along the line. So you can see here I'm cutting out the flashing for this centre cap. There we go. As you can see, it's got a fluted edge, and that fits into the countersunk hole on the centre spindle. And then we need to put in M320s. That's one from each side on the centre spindle. And same as what we did for the Vex wheel that you can see in the picture there. It just adds a bit of reinforcement and stops it sliding around. So yeah, one M320 in there. And you'll notice I've upgraded to XT screwdrivers. Much easier trying to use a little, hex screw, Allen key. So yeah, this takes a long time. It is painful. It takes a very long time. Find the other note that I lost. There we go. And just start tapping it in, and eventually screw that one in. Just trying to get it to catch. Again, it's the black plastic, so the accuracy's off. I should have pre-drilled these holes really, it would have been much easier. But anyway. Done, nice and tight. It's still got some movement. It's probably harder to move than I realised, because I'm trying to, my fingers are scraping against the gearing. So that's that bit done. Now we work on the printed tyre. So this is printed in TPU with TPU 85 and Ninja Flex. So nice and squishy. And you can see the 3 nodules on the inside of the rim. I'm just pointing out there. And white on white, so it's hard to tell, but you can just see when the shadow comes over it, you can see that's where the nodules go. So you know that the tyre's lining up. It also stops the tyre moving. Ironically, on the black tyre, this is actually quite easy. For some reason on this one, I struggled a bit more than I did on the other one. Maybe because I was doing it on camera and I was getting cocky, thinking, oh yeah, I know how to do this. The other one was really easy. Incidentally, this was the white rim was a reprint. So originally it was black. I did reprint it. I thought, because I've got the bearings in there, I thought, okay, let's just not waste the time. Let's just print new ones. I was also having problems with the fact that attached to that wheel is a wheel gear, and it's got like little sections that slot in. Just see when my hand moves out of the way, maybe. They weren't fitting, so I had to reprint. It's just easier to reprint rather than trying to Dremel out those holes, or sand them out, or file them out, or anything. So you can see I'm trying to force the tyre over the rim of the wheel, because once you get over that first point, it should just push in. It is tight, but as I said, once you get it over that rim, it'll just slide on. It is a pain to get back off again. In fact, I'd say it's almost impossible to get back off again. Here we go, it's almost on. And somehow while doing this, the nodules are slightly off, so I'm just trying to shift the tyre over very slightly to sit flat, to sit into the dips. It's probably an easy way of doing it than this, but yeah. There we go, much messing around later, we have a tyre that rolls. As you can see, it's, I think I'll show you. No, I don't. Anyway, so now we put the bearings in. These are 6800 2RS again. So the same ones we used on the gearing. And one goes in there. Quick tap and it's in. And as you see, the drive gear, which I printed in white, originally this is black. Again, that just pops in there. And then one on the other side, but I need to clear out the support material. And just give it a bit. This is the printed side down. Sorry, the bed side down there. But yeah, there you go. So there's two bearings in there, and then one bearing in there. And you can see the drive gear. You can see the clips in like that. Sorry, not drive gear, wheel gear. And you need some M3 square nuts. And I think you can tell where they go. Just pop into those holes there. Eventually. Yeah, and you need M340s, you need 3 of those. And basically they just screw in from the other side on the wheel gear. Also, it helps when you're screwing, if you're actually screwing into the X hole, not off to the side. As I'm doing there. Yeah, just need to screw through enough and then it lets you catch and just pull nice and tight, and then it holds the wheel gear to the wheel, to the tyre. Just tighten them up. There we go. So that one works relatively well. And then back to here. So we now need to add some 7 M3 square nuts. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the top on the groove. There you go. 1 in there, put in. As you can see, I'm using the bore drill to push through the bridging material, but also to put the square nut in place. Found that worked quite well. And again, as I said, the 4 across the top here. That one's a little awkward to get to. I think in retrospect, you need to put the square nuts on the groove before you put the motor in and secure the square nuts in. It'd be easier. And then you add the inner frame. So as you can see there, I'm pointing out that that little cut out is for the motor cable, and just pull the shrouding up. It sits nice and flush. And then you want, when I find them, M320s. And like on the outer frame, they go across there and there as well. So basically 6 of the 7 M3 nuts are going to have the 20mm bolts in. See if you can spot my deliberate mistake. So we screw those in. So these went in relatively well, although I must admit the nuts kept falling out and then becoming more and more awkward to pop them back in again. Yeah, and yeah, it's just easy to turn it over. And then finally, you want an M335 when I find them. Yeah, M335, and that goes on the edge facing the camera now. But not all the way, let's literally just hold it in. There you go. 7 bolts. Right, did you spot my deliberate error? There we go. How am I going to get that in? Now, if you read the instructions, you're supposed to put the wheel in first. So, unscrew all the bolts. Yeah, unscrew all the bolts. Just open it. I'm trying to just take as many out as little as possible. Just push the inner frame out until you get the wheel in. There we go. And I think that was enough. Just take that one out. I just want to swing it effectively. And the wheel clips in, and the gearing should slot into the herringbone of the drive gear itself. Drive gear? No, not drive gear, sorry, the centre gear. Alright, at this point I've lost an M3 square nut and I don't know where it's come from or what's happened to it. I think it popped out when I was moving the inner frame away. Can't see an easy way of getting it back in either, so in the end I just leave it. There's enough bolts in there. So yeah, I'm going to try and get the M3 square nut back in again. Oh, in fact, to do this time, yeah. There's been another one that pops out later. Yeah, there's another one that pops out later. It's confusing myself now. Yeah, I did not enjoy these drives at all. To be fair, you read through the instructions and you watch it on here, it looks relatively easy. I think the problems I had with just the print quality soured the experience. So yeah, there we go. So now we need the wheel spindle, and that pushes through from the inner frame side. And it will pop out of the cover side. So just quickly file it down so it slides through easily. There you go. That's it, just pop something through there. And once I've got it lined up, I get my trusty hammer and just smack it in like a kid's toy. Just make sure it's actually going to come out the other side in the right place. Out pops bearing. There you go, pops out there. And somewhere, there we go. So I need the M335s again. Oh yeah, this bit was entertaining. So first of all, we need the wheel cap. So much like the centre spindle cap, this just clips on the end, but this one's not fluted. It is countersunk, but it's not fluted. And that just sits on the cover side. But M335. These were a pain. Apart from me dropping the screws. I should have pre-drilled these holes. I didn't. So it might be worth just pre-drilling the holes before you even attempt to do this. I know Mike says they should self-tap, but the bolts are not designed to, machine screws are not designed to self-tap. And I decided to get the drill out. And drill a hole through. I just give it a bit one more try. It's hard work screwing through that plastic because the plastic has nowhere to go. And the end of my hand's hurting. So I give up for the night. I think. Was it after this bit or was it the next bit? Yeah, I can see the screw is already starting to rip. So, yeah, I give up for the night. Oh no, I don't. Talking rubbish. I tried drilling the holes out. So I've taken the screw back out. I've wrecked the screw in the process. Used a wrench to get it out because the cross thread had torn. Cross thread, the shape that you used to. God, words. So even with a pre-drill, it was still quite hard work. And even at this point, the screw head was tearing and rounding out. I think this one I got all the way down. Yes, I did with this one, got all the way down. The other side, I didn't. So at this point, I've only got one M335 left. I might have to order some more for the rest of the or I will have to order some more for the rest of the build. So I gave up for the night. So this is the next night. Try and screw it down. I can see it's already torn or starting to round out. Try using a flathead. It just doesn't have the torque on it to get through the plastic's just not letting it move. So out comes the wrench. And I kid you not, I tighten the wrench and I just treat it like a bolt. The downside to this is that the machine screw has bent at an angle by the time I get down to the bottom, so it's actually whirling around. I got a funny feeling I'm going to regret that. I'll just check it is still moving, so I can see it's bent. So this is my last machine screw, so I've got to use this one. Yeah, I give up at this point. I decide to use an M330 instead. It's stuck as well. It's just not going any further down. So I just unscrew it using the wrench. Yeah, this is painful. There must be a better way than this, Mike. Seriously. I'm trying to think of what could be a better way. Just a threaded bolt with a bushing on it. Yeah, there you go. See, I've rounded out the screw before I even got down to the bottom. So bin that. And I'm going to try an M330 instead. So it's only 5mm off. It should be long enough just to manage. And as I've already pre-drilled, pre-tapped most of it already, it should be okay. You can see I get a bit further down than I did last time. Instantly on the black drive I didn't have this problem, but anyway, so resort back to the infinite wrench. And yeah, just use it like a hex driver. It's not a hex driver, like a bolt. Yeah, at this point I can see the screw is actually at an angle. It's going round and round and round. I think even you can see it on camera. Yeah, you can see it's at an angle. And then just try and get it down as far as possible. I never get it all the way down to flush. I'm hoping that's not going to be a problem. I'll find out when we put it into the foot shells. It shouldn't be a problem considering how far out the motor's sticking. There must be some clearance there. I'm looking at the foot shells now and wondering. Yeah, it's only a few mil off. So there we go. It's a M327 in there. But anyway, it's moving. At this point, I'm just checking it's not binding anywhere, and I can feel a bit of binding, but I think that's mainly down to the fact that it's slipping on the mat. So next step is to take the M335s out. I suppose I could have really used those M335s, couldn't I? Okay. Oh yeah, this is the screw where it doesn't have a M3 nut. I can't work out why. And of course, it's not going to attach or anything, so I just leave it off. I think what I might do is just run some plasti weld down the side, create a weld that way, and then put a screw in. So it taps that way. So you need some M3 square nuts, and you want the 8 going down the side here of the frame. And this is the point we attach the Omni wheel. So your Omni wheel just sits on there. Make sure I've actually got the M3 square nuts and all the ones. So, there you go. Omni wheel sits on there. And then M320s. So I must admit, despite the problems I've had building it, I do think it's a really clever design. hopefully it works quite well. Oh yeah, clean out the bridging holes, the bridging material. Here we go, and then just try and get it to catch the square nut. So you can't, when you do this, you've got to kind of almost push down and up against the groove, the centre groove, to just get the holes in just the right place to catch. Otherwise you will just miss the square nut. But once you've got a couple in, the rest should follow fine. What I would advise is probably doing alternating sides, to do the two bottom ones and the two next ones, and then work your way up, rather than doing one side like I've done here. Because you'll find in a minute when I come to do the other side that it's sort of canted very, very slightly to one side. And it's not enough for me to be able to push it down and screw it in. So I have to, you know, go back and redo it. Yeah, this one. I think it's this one or the next one. I find that it's not quite. Yeah, it's not catching. It's canted at one side, and I thought, oh, maybe it's the screw. It's the screw not long enough. It doesn't seem to be sort of pushing all the way in and catching. Yeah, I can see the square nut in there. Yeah, it's definitely a 20, but it just doesn't feel like it's screwing far enough down to catch the square nut. I can't work out why. Oh, sorry for the chair. So I go back slightly, and then use the board rule to hold it in place while you see if that helps. But in the end, I just undo all these nuts and make sure that they've all got square nuts in. They do. And that it is actually able to catch from both sides. Yeah, the screws are long enough on both sides. Just double checking it all. Push the board rule through, make sure that the holes are there. And the holes to the N3 nuts are actually in the right place as well. Check it is actually screwing through as well. It's not like material stuck in the way or something. And it all seems fine. And the same on this one. So we try again, but from this time from the other side. Yeah, that's where I realised it. Yeah, so that's, I think this one was still a bit of a problem. Eventually it does go in. Yeah, double checking the size of the nuts again. So like, yeah, it's definitely a 20. I think again, I just brute force and ignorance and just push it down. Checks that a longer nut will work, and it does. It's sticking out the other side. There's no reason the 20 shouldn't. Longer screw. There's no reason that the 20mm shouldn't fit. It shouldn't catch. And that seems to do it. So back to the first side that I did originally. Screw down the M335s. And then the other M420s. So M320s. So what have I taken from this build? Hot glue the M3 nuts. Print all the pieces with the same printer. Check the bearings fit before you start to build it. Pre-drill all the holes. So now we're putting the last bit on. So this is the front plate. And just double checking where it goes and which way round it goes. Because the picture, Mike doesn't actually show you a picture where it goes until it's on the finished piece. So as you can see here, it does like a step up. The step up should be facing outwards and up. Yeah, so the step should be there. So 2 M3 square nuts, one on each side. And then use M315s, sorry, M314s, whatever you can find. And then just screw those in. There we go, it's the drive done. So last, we're now going to do the lithium grease. And this is just to give the gears a bit of help, stop it overheating too much. And yeah, so put some nitrile gloves on, because this stuff is horrible to get off your hands afterwards. And we're going to put a bit there, there, and across there, and then on the wheel gear there. So just squeeze a bit on, turn the wheel around, squeeze a bit more. Yeah, don't be shy about putting stuff on. So basically, I'm just spinning it around to try and get it on into as much of the gearing as possible. In the end, I think it's easier just to use a brush. Just brush the grease in. Sounds really weird, but yeah, then run some more lithium grease along there. I suppose you could use white grease. This also should help stop some of the binding that I'm seeing. Hopefully, because it, this starts sliding past each other. Less friction. So yeah, just put a bit on the wheel gear. Checking it still spins okay. It seems to be spinning a lot easier. And just making sure it's all within all the within all the gear teeth. And I'm happy with that. So one drive gear, that's one drive gear, and the other drive, and done. Take a rest. I think it's fair to say that these were a bloody nightmare. Honestly. If it wasn't for the parts being the wrong dimensions as on the circles, it was the screws not randomly going in. I mean, I chewed up 3 M335s, and there's still one that's not in the right place. You just saw on the video. I literally finished building the drives. You saw me put my hands down on my head. I've tidied up. I've set up to do this ending bit. So I've yet to even film the voiceover at this point. Yeah, these were a pain. Consider it's what, 10 pages of instructions. Probably not even that once you get past the instruction. I found these really hard. There was just so many things that were going wrong with them. Anything printed with this black filament was, I had to drum out the bearing holes. yeah, I was having to self-tap the screws, and it's just at least the white one was marginally easier than the black one that I built off camera. I built this one off camera purely just to make sure that I wasn't going to run into any more issues for when I carried on the white one. So the little bit of the video where I said, yeah, it took me a week to Dremel out the bearing holes and off I go. That was actually 3 weeks before I got around to building the white. Before I even got around to finishing the black drive. Before building the white drive. Pardon me. Yeah, they're built. I put the lithium grease on them. I'm hoping that was the right thing to do. In my head, that feels like the right thing to do. Just give it a bit of lubrication, keep it a bit protected from the heat. Yeah, we'll see. I've got a horrible feeling that when these go into chopper, one of them going to start binding. I think it'd be the white one that starts binding, and I think that's possibly down to where that M335 I was using a monkey wrench, an infinite wrench to screw it in, and I could see it going all over the place and thinking, oh, this is not good. I can see myself cutting that bit out, taking that screw back out, and then just putting something else in. Even the shorter M330 didn't help. I think it's purely for the fact I'm trying to self-tap with a non-self-tapping screw through plastic that has nowhere to go. Design floor, maybe? Mike, design floor? Better idea? Maybe a threaded rod goes all the way through? Don't know. Yeah, I'm exhausted. I mean, admittedly, the last bit you saw where we're in these clothes, that was what, 45 minutes worth of video before it gets sped up. And then yesterday when I was doing the first bit of the white drive, but I've been putting these drives together. It's just look at it in the evening, just go, not tonight. I think these are the biggest mental roadblocks so far in building Chopper. Arguably, possibly the most important thing, apart from making it look like Chopper, is it's got to be able to drive. So these are important, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to build these again. I've been scarred by these. Yeah. They're done. At least they are done. And then the next episode will be, we'll put them into the foot shells and then put the legs on the body. You can see the foot shells just behind me there. While I think about it, you may notice that you can see the black foot shell, the black battery box on the white foot shell, and there's a white foot shell just sort of perched on top of it with no battery box. Let me show you. So, battery box. So what the hell happened there? Well, this is one of those, I really want to do a dramatic reenactment, but if I do that, I'll probably end up breaking even more. So the battery boxes the feet in the battery boxes are stacked where you see them there. And you see this plasterboard here. I'm trying to get into these drawers. Tip the plasterboard forward very, very slightly just to get into the drawers. I was putting gloves away, I think. And then you can't see it, there's an oil-filled radiator just behind it. And the plasterboard tips just far enough to knock the oil-filled radiator over. And of course, what happens to the oil-filled radiator? It goes bang. And it's ribs. Smack, smack. 2 ribs. Cut straight in. Annoying, admittedly. I don't know if the camera's going to be able to pick it up inside very well. So, no, you're not going to be able to see it very well because of where the... No, okay. So, it's a shame. Oh, yeah, you can actually. If I try and do this in reverse. There, can you see it? It's superficial damage. At the end of the day, there's nothing in this. So it's not the end of the world. It's just a bit of putty. Or, yeah, shed loads of putty, and then I'll just sand it flat, and I'm gonna I can tell already I'm gonna have to put another layer in. There was a school of thought of it's weathering. Like, yeah, a chopper doesn't have a massive dent in the side of his battery boxes, but either way, it's salvageable. It's just one of those another annoying things of, oh god, another thing. Anyway, I'm ranting, I'm rambling, I'm tired. At least they're done. At least they're done. And then we'll put them in the feet, in the foot shells, put this back on, and then we'll mount it up. And then he'd be on 3 legs. Headless, but on 3 legs. And then we're getting somewhere. Right. Thank you very much for bearing with me. I apologise. It has been weeks since the last episode. And yeah, I think I said this before many times that I build this in my spare time, and my spare time is like hours in the evening. Do as much as I can. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.